Good morning. Anybody enlightened yet? Please, don't get enlightened too quickly. If you get enlightened today, then what are you going to do for the rest of the retreat? Yes, you're enlightened already. Yes. You didn't answer the last question. The last question, elaborate. What was the last question? I never understood the last question over here. Come on. Oh, okay. Good. Excellent. So I understand the question, but it's easier to explain the answer. The answer was no. That's easy to understand. No, it was just they were asking the connection between the jhanas and the enlightenment stages. There is a connection there, but it's a very loose one, and it needs more than just a jhana. However, in the Pasadika Sutta of the Digha Nikaya, that's where someone was instructing this monk and say, if people of other traditions ask you, do you have fun as a life of a monk? Do you enjoy your life as a monk? All those ones I see in front of me. And you should say yes, but it depends what type of joy and pleasure you're talking about. So what about the 5 sense pleasures? Do you enjoy those? He said no. We enjoy the pleasure of the 6th sense. You know the 6 senses? What are they? Sight is number 1, hearing number 2, smell, taste and physical touch being the 5th sense. The 6th sense is the mind, which is why sometimes people don't even understand what the mind is. Reason being that the other 5 senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, taste and touch, kind of dominate. And the mind, you very rarely have the opportunity just to know, just a pure 6th sense, which is one of the reasons why very few people really understand it. Later on, because you've already started this meditation process, there will come a time when those 5 external senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, taste and touch, totally vanish. And you're not unconscious, you're aware of your mind. And that is incredibly pleasurable. And so he said, yes, we do enjoy the pleasure of the mind sense. Even when that mind sense is not totally alone from the other 5 senses, such as sometimes you may be hearing a talk, and sometimes it's so inspiring that you feel the pleasure of sitting on a flat floor, not comfortable, and the weather may not be as good for you as you would have hoped. Maybe for some it's too cold, maybe for some it's too hot. So it's not very pleasurable outside your body, but inside your body you get so inspired You have the happiness of the six senses because you're inspired by something. Or you see a very kind act by somebody which inspires you. Or whatever it is, you read a book or something which inspires you. And when it does, that's a pleasure which is beautiful. It's one of the reasons why people come to Buddhist monasteries, to listen to the Dhamma. And sometimes, why do you go there? Because it's inspiring. It's a joy for the mind. And that's a beautiful thing to experience. And sometimes the happiness which you can feel when you listen to a Dhamma talk, when it really gets to you, is so inspiring and so joyful. Please keep coming. And from that, we get to the purer happinesses of the mind. What are those? Oh, come on. I've just been checking whether you've understood what I've been talking the last 3 days. What's the real happiness of the mind? What do we call it? Jhana. That's intense. And that, in my own history as a Buddhist, none of my family were Buddhist. My parents couldn't even spell Buddhism in the English language. You ask, can you spell it please? B-O-O. No. They were totally unused to it. But it really attracted me. How could I be attracted to Buddhism living in a country like that, when my parents never even knew how to spell it? How could that happen? Did someone say past lives? Obvious, isn't it? Why? Okay, I was smart. I always had scholarships and passed all the important exams. Because obviously that something else was influencing me. Why was I attracted to that? Yeah. Well, when you have physics and science, it's close. I never realized how close at the time. But I always remember the day in the science lecture at Cambridge, the physics lecture, of subatomic particles. And then they were very excited when there was people had discovered the quark, Q-U-A-R-K. And they said there's 3 types of quarks, but they manifest in 8 different ways. I'm not going to explain that to you, but what I do remember, when he said 8 different ways, the lecturer on the screen in the lecture hall put on the screen the 8-fold path of the Buddha. I almost got into trouble because I said, yay! But nevertheless, many people feel there's a connection there. One of the ways there was a connection, I must admit, was in science. We always had the method by which you'd propose an idea and you wouldn't dismiss it. You put it up there and invite everybody, whoever they were, to try and disprove it. And if the disproof could not be found, and it was held to be truthful, suggest it first. Don't try and prove it. Open it up for disproof. And if after many years no one can disprove it, then it becomes truthful. I kind of like that idea. Because everyone, whenever they had a new idea, Everyone was invited. Come on, disprove it. Come on, find an objection. Come on, I'm listening to you. Which meant everybody got involved. And it's because of that, these things were proved eventually. That's like even Einstein, when he started putting forward his general theory of relativity, that space is bent, and light does not travel in a straight line. It gets bent by very heavy objects, such as like the sun. There's a lovely story about Albert Einstein. That once, he became famous in Europe, and no one had ever seen him in the United States. So eventually, some of the big universities on the East Coast invited him to go to the US to visit, to give some lectures on general relativity. He accepted. And so it takes, quite a few days to travel across the Atlantic Ocean on a big cruise liner. When he got to the destination, somewhere in New York, some dignitaries there welcomed him and said, "This is your limousine, this is your driver, he will look after you for the whole of this tour. We'll take you from one university to another to give your lecture." He was very happy to be received like that. And he gave basically the same lecture on quantum physics, on general relativity. And the driver, he had no other thing to do, just to look after Albert Einstein and listen to the lectures. And after 3 or 4 lectures, all the same, that's when the driver told, Professor Einstein, "I like your lectures, they're very good. I've listened to the first 4 of them, and I know them so well, even I could give that lecture." And one thing you will notice, and I noticed anyway, all the best lecturers, the people who really were doing the important work, were always kind of different. They're always a little bit rebellious, always willing to experiment and try something different. So when Albert Einstein heard his driver say, "I could give your lectures," Albert said, "Why not?" So before they get to the next university, they swap seats. And the driver, now dressed like Albert Einstein, and Albert Einstein put on the chauffeur's cap and pretended to be the chauffeur. So when they got to the next university, the vice chancellor of that university opened the passenger seat door for Professor Albert. Welcome to Harvard, or welcome to Stanford, I don't know, it couldn't be Stanford. "Welcome to Harvard, Professor Einstein." And the cabbie said, "Sure." And they said, "We never knew that Albert Einstein could speak in a Bronx accent." But nevertheless, and so he invited who they thought was Einstein, he was just a driver, into the main quarters for dinner. And whenever you go to a posh dinner like that, people never actually speak properly. They always pretend. Anyway, they don't want to offend the great Professor Einstein, who's actually the driver. And Albert Einstein, he had to go to basically the workers' quarters for lunch. And anyway, when it came time for the lecture, the driver, pretending to be Albert Einstein, went to the lectern and he gave this talk on general relativity. Perfect. Afterwards, they all clapped, "Well done." And after he got the applause, it was time for questions. That's why questions are so important when you give a lecture. So it had the questions. And then one of those professors at Harvard was a bit sort of doubtful. Is this really the great Albert Einstein? Speaking like somebody born in New York. So he asked a very difficult question on general relativity, with the aim of proving or disproving this gentleman who gave the lecture was really Einstein. And so he asked the question, the driver listened to it, then he remarked, "I'm really surprised. You're supposed to be a professor. That's such a simple question. Even my driver sitting in the back can answer that." And the driver did. I tell that story because many people say of me, I teach the same Dhamma every week. We heard that story last time. And I think many of you have heard me enough times. You could get up here and pretend to be Ajahn Brahm. Okay. So anyway, that was a little story about Albert Einstein. But now today I wanted to, that particular question, there is one thing which has a significance there. It's not that jhana causes the stages of enlightenment, but the stages of enlightenment are impossible without jhana. Why? It's because not just jhana, mindfulness, samavayama, all of those factors of the Eightfold Path, every one of them is necessary if you want to experience a stage of enlightenment. I know that sometimes some people argue and they say, well, it says that mindfulness is the only way to get enlightened. Absolutely bad translation. It never says that at all. They call it ekayana. My pronunciation there I'm very mindful and careful how I pronounce that. Because ekayana, a short A after the K, ekayana does mean one way. That's not what the Buddha said. It ekayana, a going in one direction only. Fortunately, there are other places where it does actually mention what is the one and only way to enlightenment. Ezo wamago nati anya dasanasa visuddhiya. This ezo wamago, only way, there is no other, for the purity of insight. Ezo wamago nati anya dasanasa visuddhiya. Is there anyone here who understands Pali? They're pointing at the speaker. The speaker doesn't understand Pali. I mean, they might not speaker. Ezo wa mako nati anyu dasanasa visuddhiya. And that refers to mindfulness? No. Jhana? No. What does it refer to? The Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the only way to enlightenment. There is no other. What is the Eightfold Path? Do you remember? What's number one? Right view. Good. Right view. Number two of the Eightfold Path? Intention. I think you all know me by now. I'm a very honest monk and also sometimes a little bit rebellious. It does not mean intention. The second factor, samma sankappa, the right intention. Intention means where you're going to, what you want to make happen. It's Samma Sankappa. There's 3 types of good intention, or good Sankappa. It means thoughts, actions coming from renunciation, loving kindness, and gentleness. Sankappa is, what's renunciation again? Nekama. Nekama, Avyapada, and Ahimsaka. Avyapada is the opposite of metta. Avyapada is opposite of metta. Avyapada means metta. And that was important for me to find that, because I always loved Buddhism for making metta so important. And because it was so important, I was looking through the suttas. Where is metta in the Eightfold Path? I couldn't find it at first. Shouldn't we have not samma this or samma that, samma metta? And anyway, that's where it was, in the second factor of the Eightfold Path. And they use the rendering Avyapada. It's a negative, the opposite, which in this particular case is always said to mean metta. Is metta your intention, or is it where you're coming from? The speech, words, thoughts coming from renunciation. That's the first factor of the second factor of the Eightfold Path. The last factor was vihimsaka, otherwise meaning ahimsaka. Unfortunately, you can always pay gratitude to Mahatma Gandhi. That was his path of ahimsa, non-violence, gentleness. And you can know how powerful that was. When Mahatma Gandhi got rid of the British Raj from India, my ancestors, no one could ever think that could be done. That's how powerful that was. And that's one of the reasons why we do try to always have ahimsaka in Buddhism. No matter who we are, no matter what we do. Violence has no place in Buddhism. That's even why, please excuse me, but when I went to a Zen retreat and saw the Zen master using the Zen stick, whack, he never hit me. I was always very lucky. Because on this Zen retreat I went to, I would go anywhere to have the chance to do some meditation. And at this Zen retreat, if you got a bit sleepy and started nodding, he's walking behind you, he'd tap you on the shoulder with the stick, and then whack. I never got hit. You know why? I was sleepy, but the guy sitting next to me was more sleepy. He got hit first. Then after that, I wasn't sleepy at all. I didn't want to get hit. They all said it doesn't hurt. I didn't believe them. It sounded like it really hurt. And then I realized you can't meditate out of fear. That doesn't work. So I kind of dismissed that technique. But one interesting thing which did happen on that first Zen retreat, I'll come back to the question afterwards. I was like wandering around because that's what nature does. So on that Zen retreat, I'd never done Zen meditation before. You know what I was told to do? You sit down, however comfortable, uncomfortable, doesn't matter, and you keep your eyes open when you're doing Zen meditation. And I was not looking at anybody, you face the wall. And so I was sitting there with my eyes fully open, facing a whitewashed wall. That's all the instructions I was given. Just look at the wall. Fortunately, I'd done other types of meditation before, and those other types of meditation, you were taught how to keep your mind quiet. Don't think. Let go of the past, let go of the future, and be silent. So you could really be mindful. And that's what I was doing. Very mindful, eyes fully open, looking at a whitewashed wall. And what happened next was worth that retreat. What happened with my eyes fully open, being still, the wall vanished. It disappeared. That was really weird. My eyes were fully open. It's like you looking at me now. Don't think. Don't do anything. And then I'll disappear. It's impossible. I didn't expect it. No one told me that's what was going to happen. And fortunately, because I'd done enough meditation already, I never felt scared. That was really helpful. If I felt scared, I'd have screamed, where's the wall gone? My eyes were open all the time. I never wore glasses then. But it vanished. And then I was also trained as a scientist. So I figured it out pretty quickly. Your brain and your mind is pretty similar. Your brain can only notice things which move. If they're perfectly still, don't move at all, or it's sound, it doesn't change. It disappears from your conscious awareness. That's how animals, or even things like spies, can be so hard to see if they don't move. That's why people who are living in noisy parts of the world, they say, you've got a train line right behind my house. I can't meditate that well. You get used to that train line after a while. You don't even hear it. It's what's called ambient sound. Can you hear the sound of the fans and the aircon? Can you hear it now? Once you start meditating, it will disappear. It's not because someone turns it off. The brain gets used to it, realizes it's nothing worth thinking about, it's not dangerous, and so because of that, it's not recorded as important. It vanishes from your mind. That's how your brain works. And so that's the same, even sight. To see something like a wall just vanish. So what did I see afterwards? It was like a blank space? No, the sight had turned off. If you want to try this, if your sight is very strong, close your eyes. What do you see? You see the inside of your eyelids. That's why sometimes it looks red, because the blood vessels are very close. But it doesn't move. So after a while, sight turns off. It always happens to me when I start meditating, I close my eyes. It turns off pretty quickly. This was the first time it happened with my eyes fully open. Simply because I was facing a white wall, which had nothing interesting. And I wasn't thinking, I wasn't fantasizing. I was just in this moment being still, and things vanish. That's so cool. I wasn't going crazy. I could understand it. And I realized that taught me a lot about what this meditation really is. You keep still. You don't move that much. Close your eyes. You don't need to be in a perfectly silent environment. Just make sure that the sounds are not very strong and then turn off. Make sure it's an ambient sound, pretty even. And then it becomes so uninteresting, you can't even hear it. You're in silence, sound is turned off. The next thing to make sure that people, and they on a retreat, have a good shower in the morning. You're sitting behind them. You don't want to be disturbed by smells, by odours. That's one of the reasons why it's great. Please don't wear perfumes or deodorants. Just be clean, have no odour. That's much better. And if people have bad digestion, and they're always letting off wind from the backside, the person behind you can be very disturbed. So I ask all people who have a wind coming out of their backside, please sit in the back. So the only thing behind you is the wall. See, that's why people sit in the backs. Is that the case? No, it's just out of compassion, so we're not disturbed by smells, not disturbed by sounds, not disturbed by sights, not disturbed by, what's the other one, tastes. You're not eating when you're meditating. And lastly, sit as comfortably as you can. Can you ever find perfect comfort in your body? When I start meditation, there's always something, either aching, too hot, too cold. At the very least, when I sit down for meditation, I can feel the pressure of my body on my buttocks. Can you feel that? For how long? After a little while, it disappears. As long as it doesn't change. That's why when I do the body scan method, I don't try and get rid of that pain. I try and make it even on both buttocks. Because I know that when it's even, it's not strong, it's not going to change. It disappears. That's a lot to do with how your body works. You keep it still, even, and it vanishes. That's the same which happens with your breathing. Because the breath is disturbing, it's always changing. Now I'm breathing in, now I'm breathing out. So what do you do with the breath meditation? You make it as soft and peaceful as you can. When it is soft and peaceful, you can still discern in-breath, end of in-breath, beginning of out-breath, all the different phases of the breath. But you discover, as you become more and more relaxed, you only see one part of the cycle of in-out breath. Just going in. This is one part of the whole cycle of breath. Then the next part. You don't force, you don't get excited, you don't get negative. And after a while you'll be surprised how smooth it feels. What's the difference between an in-breath and an out-breath? It's a feeling, usually in your nose, it could be somewhere else, which is stimulated by the passage of air past it. You don't worry which one is which. Beginning, yes. In the middle, no. And you find it's almost like a continuous movement of breath. And after a while, because the sensations are pretty similar, no matter where you are in that cycle of breathing, the breath disappears. It's not because you're losing mindfulness. This is natural. This is supposed to happen. But as before it totally disappears, you start to experience that breath, not as a physical object, not as a touch. You start to experience that breath as a mental object. You're not feeling the breath anymore. You're knowing the breath. Two are totally different. Different sensations, different experiences. One is of the fifth sense. The other one is of the sixth sense. And that's one of the reasons I always was kind of, not worried, but bamboozled. I couldn't understand why it is. There's something like the breath. Now how boring can that be, just watching a breath go in and go out for hours on end? How can that ever be possible? Don't you get bored out of your skull? And the point is, you only can feel the breath for a short time when you start knowing the breath and a sense of touch has been turned off. You feel so free. And it allows the experience to be incredibly delightful and beautiful. That's one of the reasons why, once you get into what I called before the pivot point of meditation, you start experiencing how the mind experiences your breathing. And it usually gets incredibly pleasant and really happy, really joyful. So much so that you don't want to stop. When that happens, marvelous, great, carry on. You can meditate for hours, blissing out all the time. Isn't that a wonderful happiness to have? The secret happiness which many other people don't know about in the world. The happiness of even the early stages of meditation. Really enjoying this. And what happens next? That joy gets stronger and stronger and stronger. As it does, naturally you move further away from the world and deeper into the mind. As you go deeper and deeper into it, you get to know what the mind is. And so because of that, the Eightfold Path eventually leads you to understanding, wisdom, not knowing what the Buddha said, but knowing what the Buddha meant. And that's one of the reasons why, from these deep meditations, it's like all of the places where the Buddha learned his Dhamma is all right in front of you. And that's one of the reasons why the Buddha said, without jhanas, there's no hope of understanding the mind. You need just a pure mind. I don't mean without any bad habits, without separated from seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. Just a mind. Understanding how that works. It's not only joyful, you can see so clearly why things happen. And when you start seeing that, understanding the nature of the mind, that's why the Buddha gave the simile of the goldsmith. In those days, the Buddha used whatever similes he could find, which made sense to everybody. He said a goldsmith, if you want to find out is this real gold or fake gold, you have to purify it first of all. Purify it for any other metals which happen to be in there by chance. Take away all the tin, any lead or anything, so it's pure 100% gold. And if you have 100% gold, then you can test its properties. Now, one thing about gold, it may be very bright and very beautiful, but it's also very workable, almost like bendable if it's 100% pure gold. As the Buddha said, malleable, just like your mind. If it's a pure mind, no other vestiges of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. There's a beautiful quality to it. Then you can understand it and make use of it. It's a simile of the goldsmith. And that's where you have the opportunity practice to see the Dhamma, see what is really happening in your life. And one thing is, why were you born? Why? What is birth? Many of you think you can't remember it. Oh yes, you can. Each one of you. Who were you? Why were you? Please excuse me if I tell one of the stories which I may have told earlier on. But this was about a Malaysian girl. You know, she was such a generous woman, so kind, so helpful. She was one of those ladies. We were doing a fundraiser, I think, for our nuns' monastery in Perth many years ago. So I went to the fundraiser, quite a few years ago now, and she came up to me and said, I have here a $10,000 check, Australian dollar. It's a lot of money. And I will give this to the nuns' monastery on one condition. What condition is that? The condition is you have to sing a song. Ajahn Brahm. Please don't ever try that. Because I'm a smart monk. I outwitted her. We got that check. And I didn't break any of my rules. I asked her, I said, I will do this on the condition that I can choose the song. I said, okay, you choose the song, but it has to be a well-known song, very popular. I said, okay, deal. And I don't know those people who are my age. There was a very popular two-man band years ago when I was young called Simon and Garfunkel. Have you heard of those before? So I said, can I choose a song too? I said, yeah, choose it. It has to be a song, well-known song. I said, this is my version of Simon and Garfunkel's Sound of Silence. Well, I just sat there, kept my mouth closed. Eventually she admitted defeat. And she said to me afterwards, I should never try to outwit a monk. But that's the type of lady she was. Really kind, generous, enjoy a bit of fun, but also a great meditator. So she would come on most of the retreats. And when I taught her how to remember past lives, don't just say, I believe, I don't believe it. Find out who you were in the past. And I told her how to do it. When you get to a nice, peaceful state of meditation, once your body has vanished and your mind is peaceful, you can feel its strength build up. Your mind feels powerful. When it does, suggest to yourself very quickly, just one simple sentence, what is my earliest memory? What is my earliest memory? Do it now, it doesn't work. If you do it when you're in a deep meditation, everything's so still, peaceful. It's just like the Buddha said, your mind is malleable. It will follow what you ask it. It's incredible, just the power of the mind when it's given that freedom from the five senses, what it can do for you. What is my earliest memory? And straight away, her earliest memory was just after she was born. She was breastfeeding at her mother's breast. Unfortunately, I knew her mum, that she came with me on a pilgrimage to India many years previously. So that's what she said she remembered. But then when she looked at her mother in this vision, she was shocked. It was not her mother, it was someone else. So she could not take that meditation further. So she came to me at the first possible interview. Ajahn Brahm, I did what you told me. It's my earliest memory. This is what I got. I could see her perfectly. There was someone breastfeeding me who was not my mother. She said, I'm so worried. And that woman I remember as my mum, someone I've grown up with, always thinking she was my mother. Was my real mother someone else? Imagine when you really feel that's a possibility, you've got some kind of evidence. Because these meditation experiences, especially when you ask, what is my earliest memory? They are real. You can't doubt them. That's one of the other aspects of this type of past life memory. 5 hindrances are gone at the end of beautiful meditations. And what is that 5th hindrance? It's called doubt. When you experience these types of memories from your early life or past life, they are kind of strange. There's not a shadow of doubt there. You know that was true. Anyhow, so I asked her, well, we don't know whether you were adopted or what. The only thing you can do is after the retreat is finished, after a couple of days, when you want to check in with your mum, who was in KL, she was living in Perth, give her a call and ask her, but how are you doing, Mum? Everything okay? Just ordinary talk. Oh, by the way, Mum, are you my real mum? Apparently, she was kind of so disturbed by this, she wasn't as sensitive as she could have been. What do you mean? Of course I'm your mum. Why do you think like that? And that gave her the opportunity to explain to her why she was questioning whether her mum was her real mum. And because her mother respects me and is a very good Buddhist, the mother then asked, what did that person look like? You remember breastfeeding you. And honestly, your memory of these deep meditation experiences is so strong. You remember it perfectly. So she gave a description very easily, not having to make things up. Just almost like close her eyes and she could see this person who was breastfeeding her clearly. And apparently, the mother then said to her, that's amazing. How on earth can you have such a beautiful, correct, accurate memory of the wet nurse I hired to feed you when you were just born? She said that she came from a very high-class family, and she said that her family advised her to hire a wet nurse for the first few weeks of this girl's life. How on earth did you find that out? I've never ever told you. That's why I kind of love these past life memories, because they reveal some secrets which you've never known before. On another past life memory, this was not done through meditation, through hypnosis, because we have a few members of our society who do hypnotic regression. And some were really, really good. And anyhow, this particular person that he in Sydney was hired by this mother who had a daughter who was anorexic. She just could not eat. She didn't eat anything. She vomited it out. So she was losing weight and getting thinner and thinner and thinner. It was really just almost like suicidal. And so that really sort of worried the mother. So she thought, nothing else is working. Let's see if I can hire somebody who could regress her hypnotically and find out if there's something in her past life which caused this. And of course I tell the story because there was. And it was amazing what happened. This girl was only about 16 years of age, really thin, just like me. You know, so I kind of joke sometimes, I want a t-shirt, if I could wear a t-shirt, but monks have to wear robes. And the logo on the outside was, I beat anorexia. That's not an excuse for being overweight. But anyway, this poor girl had to be accompanied by her mother, according to law. If you get a doctor who's, who's much older and treating the 16-year-old, they can't leave the two of them alone. So the mother had to be there at all times. And this was a very good hypnotherapist, and soon got this girl to describe her previous life. And she told the story in brief. In her previous life, she was the younger sister of the younger of two sisters, only two sisters in the family. And they both fell in love with the same guy. And the guy liked both girls, but he decided to marry the older sister. She was apparently more attractive. So he married the older sister, and that broke the heart of the younger sister, who committed suicide. If you've ever had a suicide in your family, do you ever tell everybody about it? It becomes one of these dark secrets which they hide. So when the older sister got married, and after a few months gave birth to a baby, no one ever told the elder sister's daughter about the past. Never told her about that younger girl who committed suicide. But under hypnosis, she started describing what it felt like when her older sister married the love of her life, and she was so heartbroken she committed suicide. And she said, that's why in this life I'm trying so hard to look beautiful. A stupid way of looking beautiful by starving yourself. He said, that's just what I have to do. And you can kind of understand that, why some women think you have to be thin to be attractive. But during this whole process, as this young 16-year-old was telling her story, the mother was going bananas. Was going hysterical, screaming, crying, thrashing her arms around. So this poor therapist had to leave the person who'd just been hypnotized just on the bench and deal with the mother who was really going crazy. When he calmed her down, Why are you reacting like that? That's when the mother said, I was that sister. This little girl I gave birth to was my younger sister before. Now she's my daughter. I never, ever, ever told her about what happened to her younger sister. We both fell in love with the same guy. I married him. And she is his daughter. It's the closest she could get to him. But the result of that trauma, she's trying so hard to be pretty. She thinks she has to be thin. I kind of was so interested in that true story. Just how even people, they've known each other in the previous life, they still get drawn together again. And that solved all the problems in that life. Once they understood why, they could understand it as an overreaction. You don't have to be thin to be attractive. I know that. How many people take photos of me? I can't understand it. So, but anyhow, those memories of past lives which happen, actually show us what's possible. Is memories of past life an important insight to have? You bet. Absolutely. There's something which the Buddha called Tevijja, the three very great insights. It's what the Buddha said led him to full enlightenment. What was the first insight? Past lives. It's the first insight the Buddha got once he came out of the jhanas. Remembered who he was before. He had some amazing memories of his previous life. How many of you know in one of the Buddha's previous lives, very likely to be a close one, the closest one to this last life he had, born Siddhartha Gautama. He was a disciple of the Buddha Kassapa. Did you know that? I mentioned it many times in my talks. It kind of shocked me when I found that out. And the person who kind of let me know was this Malaysian monk, Venerable Brahmavamso. Remember him? He's passed away now. But his sister became a monk over in Dhammasala. She's really old, but really inspiring. Because she used to live over here in Malaysia. Her brother was a monk. She became a bhikkhuni. And even though she's so old, she's so clear-minded. She said this last year, I've got to be honest, she said, please don't give me so much work. But she used to do so much, in the gardens and everything. It was really inspiring. It was her brother who told me once, there's one of the suttas. It's called the Gatikara Sutta. And in that sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha was walking with Venerable Ananda. And at one spot, the Buddha stopped and smiled. And apparently the Buddha, it wasn't done to smile in those days. So very rarely did he smile like that. And so Ananda asked him, why? What caused you to smile here? And that's when the Buddha sat down and told the story of Gatikara. It's a wonderful story to hear. It has many other great pieces of information. Gatikara was a potter, a very simple man, but very faithful. He was the chief lay supporter of the Buddha Kassapa, the previous Buddha to Siddhartha Gautama. And Gatikara had a best friend called Jotipala. And Gatikara was such a devout disciple of the Buddha Kassapa. He tried everything to get his best friend Jotipala to come and visit the Buddha Kassapa. It was in that neighborhood. If there was a Buddha around, over here in Penang or just even Butterworth, wouldn't you go and visit? Of course you would. But Jotipala said, who wants to go and visit that bald-headed good for nothing? Said bad things about the Buddha Kassapa. Gatikara thought, if I could only get my best friend Jotipala to come and see the Buddha Kassapa, just to see him, that would change his whole idea about holy monks, especially Buddhists. So he tried everything to get his best friend to go there. Every trick never worked. Until the very end, they went to the river to bathe. And after they'd finished their bathing, Gatikara, the plumber, took hold of his friend's hair and started pulling it. Hey, stop! What are you doing that for? That's really not polite, even for best friends. So I really, really, really want you to come and see Kassapa the Buddha, my teacher. And then that's when Jotipala said, you go to such extremes to get me to see this bald-headed good for nothing? Yes. Okay, I'll go. And that's actually how Gatikara got Jotipala to see Kassapa the Buddha. And of course, you can imagine what happens. As soon as Jotipala could actually see Kassapa the Buddha, he was immediately inspired with faith. And he asked, Gatikara, why don't you become a monk under Kassapa? He said, well, you know why. My two parents are blind and old. I have to devote the rest of my life to looking after my mum and dad. Even though I'd love to be a monk under the Buddha Kassapa, I can't. So Jotipala said, okay, I will be a monk under Kassapa. And at the end of the story in the Gatikara Sutta, the Buddha explained why he smiled. I was Jotipala in a previous life, and Gatikara was my best friend. Gatikara became a non-returner. And in the Devaputta Samhita, there you see the little sutta where this heavenly being came to see Gautama, now enlightened as the Buddha. Congratulations, friend. We used to be the best friends in a previous life. No, I couldn't ordain because I had to look after my mum and dad. You did ordain, and now you've been reborn as the Buddha. Well done. Our two old friends from a previous life met together. I kind of find that really sweet, very beautiful, and it gives all kind of the confirmation of where Buddha Siddhartha Gautama came from. So, when the Buddha remembered his previous lives, as the first vichara, the first insight which he had, one of those previous lives was as a bhikkhu being taught by the Buddha. Now you can understand the power of remembering a life like that. When you remember early life, previous life, if you remember it in detail, it's like a free Dhamma teaching. Understood it, going in the right direction. They said the second Vijja, the second insight which you got, was into how karma works. Do you understand about karma? So many people don't understand about the law of karma. So much so that in Thailand, for example, in Thailand, once this lady offered me a durian. Sometimes I can eat almost anything, these days much less. But I said, no, I don't really fancy a durian today, so I passed it down the line to another monk. She really complained. Does that mean if Ajahn Brahm does not accept my durian, that my father up in heaven can't have one? That's how she thought. I said, no. As long as you offer it and I receive it, I don't have to eat it. But sometimes Thais think like that. Please, Malaysians, don't ever think like that. Because once they knew I was very strict, and so once I received a whole bucket, with things like soap and soap powder, little towels and bottle of water, all these others kind of requisites for a monk. So I just received it and I passed it down to the storeroom. This was over in Perth. And after about 10 minutes, one of the anagarikas, these are the ones who help you out, because I can't store these things away, there's more people to talk to afterwards. And they came up, Ajahn Brahm, he said, you understand what you just received? Just a bucket of requisites, that's all. And then he showed me what was in the bottom of that bucket, intentionally hidden by all the other requisites around it. They did a good job, I never spotted it. It was a bottle with the words Johnny Walker written on the outside. It was a bottle of whiskey. And they said they really wanted their deceased father up in heaven to have some whiskey to drink. The only way they thought they could do that was offer a bottle of whiskey to Ajahn Brahm. Kind of, if I hadn't seen it, I would not have taken it. And so that way they thought they could get some whiskey for their dad. Up in heaven, I already told you, they don't have councils up in heaven. They don't have whiskey in heaven either. Why do you want whiskey as a heavenly being for? It's crazy. But anyway, they thought like that, so they sneaked the bottle in. You know what I told everyone to do? When all the lay people are in the kitchen, take their whiskey out, open it, and pour it down the sink. That's what they did. A few of them, look, can we open the drain so we can put the cup underneath? No! So anyhow, understanding of the law of karma, how it works, is one of the next understandings the Buddha got. With those two understandings, the third understanding which the Buddha got under the Bo tree at Bodh Gaya was the abandoning of all the craving, ill will, sense of self, everything vanished. Those were the three insights. Those were the insights which the Buddha said he practiced. That's why I repeated them. So, do you really want to become enlightened? For you, that may be how it works. Please don't ever think that you need to be a monk or a nun to be enlightened. It makes it easier. But as a layman or laywoman, yes, you can. Or lay. Can do. And that's how it works. That's not what I was going to talk about this morning. I forget what I was going to talk about. But nevertheless, those meditations, the deep meditations, they are possible for you. Lay people do it. And that's one of the reasons why I teach it. Once somebody mentioned to me, they found a book about samadhi. Samadhi means stillness, not concentration. Please never call it concentration. If you call this meditation, this samadhi, concentration practice, what does this place become? A concentration camp. This is not a concentration camp, this is a stillness camp. And with the stillness, immense degrees of happiness and joy. And sometimes people say, well, sometimes it makes me feel sick afterwards. No way. If you meditate properly, you get rid of diseases. They vanish. How? I still haven't worked that out. I just see that they do. I think I've already told you the story of my scrub typhus. Did I tell that story already here? I still can't believe that, that number one, you can meditate even though you're so sick. The lowest energy I've ever had in my life, I was only about 24, 25 at the time. And I just couldn't even sit up. And so really, really sort of the fever going on for weeks. And then you could still get into a deep meditation. That was crazy. Then that's another thing which, how on earth could you believe that was possible? It was only, I think, because of past lives. It's not my first time meditating. And it's amazing what happens. You get blissed out even though you've got a really, really heavy fever. And then afterwards, it kind of goes. What it taught me, again, this law of karma, how it works. Sometimes we feel that you've done so many bad things in your life. It's going to take you forever to pay off those debts. If you have done many bad things in your life, don't worry. I know the loopholes. Not the loopholes you invent, you see them in the suttas. The loophole is all of the past you can let go of. I remember having these great discussions with Buddhist psychologists, senior ones. Then you can't let go of the past. If you've done something wrong, it affects you. It's like cutting your arm off. You can't just suddenly stitch it back again. Kind of, you can. How? It's amazing just how, the further back in time it is, the easier you can just discard it when you realize you don't own anything anyway. We understand what this mind, this thing which you call yourself, truly is. You can let go of anything. Imagine how else could someone like an Angulimala, serial killer, become fully enlightened? How? He did. You can let go. And that's one of the reasons why, quite legitimately, many Sri Lankans, they always ask me, said, look, my goal here, I want to become a stream winner. I want to become a stream winner. Why? He said, because look, I understand the law of karma. There's so many things I've done. I've done a lot of good karma, a lot of bad karma as well. And the only way to really be free of that is what they call, to making it ahosi karma. Ahosi karma is a word which means karma that was, no longer can arise again. It's one of the reasons why when I first heard this, it inspired me, but I needed to understand it much better. It didn't make any sense at first. No matter what karma you've done, except for really terrible karma like injuring your parents or killing them or something. Most of the other karma which you have done, even in this life or past life, you can let go of it once you really understand that you don't own it. You've seen through the illusion of a self. No me, no mine. You don't own anything. If you truly see that, the non-self aspect of the Dhamma, then you're free of any bad karma you've done for eternity. There's no way you will ever be reborn in a hell realm, in a ghost realm, in an animal realm. The only other lives you have is in the human realm or the heavenly being realm. 6 more lives. If you include this one, that makes 7. That's all you have left before you Parinibbana, for certain. That's so accurate and so attractive. Do you ever want to be reborn in the hell realm again? No, me too, I don't. In a ghost realm, in an animal realm? Would you? Sometimes you see how animals are treated. You feel so much sadness for them. You don't have to be reborn as an animal, any lower realm. It's human realm, heavenly beings. Until eventually you become fully enlightened. Guaranteed. Pretty cool, I reckon. That's why many people want to become streamers. How do you become streamers? Now I'm going to answer the question I thought I was going to answer 45 minutes ago. What has jhanas to do with stream winning, once returning, non-returning, or full enlightenment? This is what the Buddha said. Anybody who indulges in the jhanas. Even it's a word which, fair enough, you can translate as attached to those jhanas. There's only 4 possibilities for them. This is the result of really indulging in the pleasures of jhana. The first possibility, stream winning. The second possibility, once returning. The third possibility, non-returning. The fourth possibility, full enlightenment. When I first read that, I put it down and read it again. Did I actually read that accurately? Check the Pali, was that correct? Absolutely. That's what happens. You start indulging in the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path. Pretty cool, eh? You have a wonderful time on the way out of samsara. Any takers? So get those jhanas, enjoy them. They really give you so much wisdom. Your mind gets very strong. You can see things as they really are. And you can heal things, inspire people, and make a much better world. Honestly, have I inspired you? If so, why? How can I just, as a scientist, come here and give a talk on Buddhism and meditation? You do, and it's powerful. And you get all these people helping you out. I've had some amazing sort of people listen to Dhamma. Some of them are still alive. I was going to mention it actually this morning. why are just there's so many, so like even film actors and actresses, Buddhists. I was talking with Chao Po in the car coming here today. Somebody showed me a photograph of a film actress in the US called Sarah Jessica Parker. She was in a coffee shop in New York having a cup of coffee, reading a book authored by this guy, Ajahn Brahm. That's what they showed it to me. And I think you know my character by now. I thought, what type of film actress is she? She's very, very popular. She started this TV series. What was it called? Shh. That's what it was called, Sex in the City. And apparently it's still going on. So I thought, if somebody is my disciple, then they should actually invite me to do a cameo. And whatever money is raised can go to the nuns' monastery in the UK. But then, if it's called Sex in the City, that won't do. So for just the one episode, they have to change it to no sex in the monastery. But there was another lady. She happened to be her vice president one year. That's why it's always really wonderful to volunteer, to help out, with organizations like the Penang Buddhist Association. However you can help out. And so she was our vice president for 1 year. And she was taking time off to go to India. She wanted to see His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So when she went there, she said, so many people want to see someone like the Dalai Lama. But she said, I'm the vice president of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia. And when she said that, it was a small organization at the time, they gave her priority. She said, I don't deserve this priority, but I took it. But she still had to wait for a couple of days. And one morning, she was a meditator, so she went into the hall just to meditate in the morning before seeing His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And she sat down nice and peacefully, and that's where everything went wrong. She was sitting down there peacefully, and she heard someone sit into the meditation mat right next to her. And she couldn't help by taking a peek. Please, when you're meditating, keep your eyes closed and don't peek. She couldn't help it, so she looked. Richard Gere. Richard Gere. Oh, I'm sitting next to Richard Gere. Oh. And that was the end of her meditation. For her, Richard Gere was much more important than His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Just being honest. So that's why when you go to these places and these kind of film stars or Sarah Jessica Parker might be there, keep your eyes closed. Okay, I think that should be enough now. Okay. Oh, do we have any questions? Okay. Oh my goodness, heaps of questions. Are you okay listening to the questions? Yeah. Okay. That's all I'll do. I haven't got much time, so I'll just read out the questions. No answers, because we're running out of time. Relax to the max. What is the definition of max? Totally, as much as you possibly can. Make sense? How much can you relax? really relax, totally relax. So you look at your body and there's no stress in it at all. That's a beautiful feeling. So sometimes when I do like a guided meditation, I say just be aware of the whole body and relax it. Really relax it. So you can find no tightness anywhere. And if you can do that, the body feels so healthy, so peaceful. And again, at my age, it's a wonderful benefit to know how to relax that much. You do get healthy. Next question. Thank you for the continuous guidance. In many occasions during meditation, my body was being pulled longer and longer till I could not see or feel it with eyes closed. I could only feel my breath and head. Sounds okay. Then something like galaxies starts to appear. Great. People think meditation is boring. If I actually kept some of these questions and published them, this is actually what happens. You see beautiful lights, see past lives, you can see galaxies coming. Really interesting. Circling, other occasion lights circling, happened in front of me. Oh, it's beautiful, but I felt as if I am not breathing when I tried to search. Both it disappeared. You don't have to keep on breathing. I should say this, I just should have said it earlier. When I came to this hall to teach meditation, I started my journey in Perth. I got an aircraft. I can't walk all the way from Perth to Penang. I arrived in Penang airport in an aircraft. But I did realize I can't bring the aircraft into the Penang Buddhist Association. I'd used it as far as I could. They came out of the aircraft, walked, and then we saw Chow Po and a car. I went in the car. Because I can't walk all the way from the airport to Penang Buddhist Association. I then went in the car as far as the car could take me. Just like even this morning, we had to park the car in the car park. And from there, I put on my shoes and I walked as far as the shoes could take me to the bottom of this hall. And then I took off my shoes and I walked barefoot into this hall. I can't take my shoes inside this hall. I can't take the car even to the bottom of the stairs. I can't take the aircraft into this Buddhist center. Every meditation object is like that. It's a vehicle to be used as far as it can go. You can take it no more. You put it down and go in a more refined vehicle. Just like your breath. The breath can only take you so far. Then you let it go. It disappears. You go deeper into the world of the mind. You can't take your shoes into jhana. You have to leave them outside. It's not that they're not permitted. It's impossible to be done. So if the breath disappears, and you're really peaceful and clear, well done. That's what's supposed to happen. My physical breath lasts until the fourth stage of the Anapanasati meditation. Fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, even the physical breath disappears, and the mental image of the breath comes. And that's where you start feeling the joyful in-breath and out-breath. And on the ninth stage of meditation, you observe what they call the citta. That's how people observe this beautiful light in the mind. I can't take the physical breath in there at all. I leave it outside. You go to this beautiful light, and then you learn how to stabilize it. And then in the 12th stage of meditation, you release that mind. Stage 12 of Anapanasati, there's no breath there at all. That's where you enter the first jhana. Understand? In that 12th stage, there's no breath anymore. It's disappeared. You don't mind at all. I tried to search, but it disappeared. Excellent. Don't search. It's gone. Is this my imagination? No. It's the beginning of nimitta. Yes. It's the beginning of nimitta. How do I hold it still, like what you mentioned? This is actually the skills which you learn. When I was meditating, getting nimitta nice and easy, but the nimitta would never be stable. And then the insight which I had, which helped me enormously, was one morning I was just shaving in the mirror, just shaving my chin. And as I was shaving, kind of like you get insights, ideas come up. So I decided to try and hold the mirror still. And even if I was holding the mirror still the image of me and the beard I was developing was still moving. And you realize that's not the way to keep the image still. Not to hold the mirror still, but to hold the one which was watching perfectly still. So the one who was watching them, when that stopped moving, the image in the mirror stopped moving. And to me, that just gave me the answers of how to watch a nimitta and keep it still. Forget about the image, trying to hold that still. As you are observing this, your mindfulness has to be still. I don't know if I explained it well, but it really worked for me. Could you please elaborate on the purpose of meditation? The main purpose is to be fully enlightened. And if you ask, what's the purpose of being fully enlightened? Oh, come on. Don't you want to be free? You know, sometimes people say, your meditation and your theories about enlightenment, that's just escapism. I said, yes. Don't you want to escape from a prison where there's so much suffering? And take as many people out with you as you can? Doesn't that make sense? How does meditation lead one to enlightenment? You ask that question now when I've been explaining that for the last 3 or 4 days. What is meditation? It's letting go of attachments enough to feel that state of freedom, and how beautiful and peaceful and happy it is. And you carry on letting go, until it's more and more happiness, more freedom. You realize that this is what happens. It's not as suddenly you're suffering and suddenly get enlightened and that's it. It happens gradually. So you can actually test it out. Is this really working or not? What are right mindfulness and right concentration in the Noble Eightfold Path? Concentration does not exist in the Eightfold Path, it's stillness. What happened was this fellow, Rice Davids, he was working for the British government in Sri Lanka. He made a mistake, so he had to resign. And he had nothing else to do. As kind of a hobby, as an interest, he learned some Pali. And so he went back to UK and started a Pali text society to try and get good translations and Pali texts, suttas and stuff, all in English. And he was brilliant in the fact for the word sati, he gave it the English word mindfulness. That was beautiful, inspirational. And if I had a hat, I'd take it off for him for inventing the word mindfulness. Much else which he did was great. But when he said samadhi means concentration, that was a big mistake. I say a big mistake because it changed the way that many people approach meditation. It's being done through force. Do you remember your school days? I remember being at school and the teacher comes and concentrate. It had a lot of negative connotations behind it. Stillness has no negative connotations. It's much more accurate to what that word really means. And apparently that we had one guest staying at Jhana Grove for the Range Retreat some years ago. She was a professor at Stanford, Chinese. And so when I was teaching her meditation, we were talking about, of course, samadhi means stillness. In the Chinese version of the Suttas, it always comes across as meaning stillness. Chinese culture was far better than Western culture in those days. The Chinese got it right. Mindfulness doesn't mean, samadhi does mean stillness. Never ever concentration. Why they call it right, look or feel like, it means right because it serves the purpose of freeing you from samsara. It's correct in the context of the way to liberation. When the breath is very subtle and brightness starts to appear, you feel like the breath is disappearing. Great. But just when it is about to do so, some muscle activate is interrupting. It doesn't let go. Why? Quite obvious, isn't it? Sometimes there's still some residual fear. You don't want to let go. Sometimes you're got used to the normal life you've been living. And what happens when you really do let go? Blissful, powerful, but it's not something you recognize so easily. Or maybe it's a thought that interferes. Sometimes it's a thought. It's something in this transition that holds on. Any advice how to handle that situation? Okay, there's one monk I know, a nice way of saying it, getting so close to the jhana, it's almost on the edge of the jhana. And it's like it's only a metaphor, you can see there's beautiful bliss there and freedom. But then you think, no, it's a bit too much for me. It's gorgeous in there. It's blissful. It's freedom. Maybe not. But then it keeps attracting you. And so after a while, this man I know so well said, okay, why not? And you go for it. You only have that discussion once. Once you go for it, it's so beautiful. Why did I even hesitate? Please never hesitate. You see this beautiful bliss, and you're so peaceful, it's ticking all the boxes. Please go for it. Why do we do walking meditation? Oh yeah. How many times have I promised to explain walking meditation? Why does it always happen just when I can't, because I run out of time? What is the benefit? Why do I experience pain in the shoulders? Because you're not relaxing the shoulders. After a while, you can relax the shoulders. So easy in walking meditation. When you do the walking meditation, imagine sitting down hour after 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 hour. Look, if you were the Buddha or you're a good meditator, it wouldn't matter so much. When you start the practice of meditation, you don't want to experience pain. As I said on one of the first talks here, this is not anapana sati, anapana. You should never feel any tension or unhappiness or pain anywhere during the meditation. If you go back to your family and friends, how was the meditation retreat with Ajahn Brahm? Oh, such a painful shoulder. Oh, such a painful back. Oh, that's not good advertising, is it? If you go back and say, so blissful. Such a wonderful time. Great rest. I feel so energized, relaxed, refreshed. It was a great retreat. So that would be good. Maybe that you won't be able to get a place here next year because it gets too popular. But honestly, that's what it's like in Perth. To get on one of my meditation retreats is kind of impossible. 60 places, they're booked up within a few seconds. Well, gone. Is that correct, Chapa? Doesn't take long at all. Why? Really enjoy it to the max. That's another explanation of what the word max means. Enjoy it totally. Okay. In your book, The Basic Method of Meditation, you said silence is so much more productive for wisdom and clarity than thinking. Of course. Can you elaborate more? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. If you start thinking, you always think old thoughts. You never see anything new. One old thought leads to another old thought, to another old thought. Imagine when you're silent. No thoughts at all. Number one, your brain and all of your senses increase their power of perception. Okay, sorry, I can't resist. I was going to tell this story one day, but it's just going to come now. What is wisdom? What is thinking? There was one occasion on one of those retreats I was teaching over in Jhana Grove. Again, I love teaching retreats. I have the time to meditate as well. So I don't just talk. I go into a room somewhere and close the door, lock it, and don't answer the door. I either rest or meditate. So I get my energy coming up too. And on one occasion, I had a nice easy schedule. I was meditating very deeply. And as I was meditating very deeply, at the end of the meditation, just like everybody, I need to go to the toilet. So I went to the toilet, the men's area for the toilets, to do what in Australia we call a number 2. You know what a number 2 is? So I sat there and did my number 2. And then I was kind of taught to do this. Don't just flush it away. Just have a look to make sure everything is okay. There's no blood on the stool. There's no bugs on there or something. It's healthy. And that's what I did. If you have a very deep meditation, please don't do this. Because as I looked, you've heard the story before, haven't you? That's why she's smiling her head off. So I looked in the contents of the toilet bowl. And my goodness, honestly, I'm not making this up. This was the most beautiful piece of, I don't know what else to call it, feces, that's a polite word, I've ever seen in my life. Next time you have a good meditation, have a look, see what I mean. It's not just one colour of brown. It's all different shades of brown. Honestly. And if you have a look at it, you see they balance so well. The colours kind of interact. And it's not just the colours, it's the shape. It's a shape, all these little balls stuck together. And how anyone could actually construct that. They were like a Michelangelo. And I'm not supposed to say this. Okay, now I'm going to carry on. And there was a slight bit of mucus on the outside. It made it glisten like a diamond, shimmering in the bottom of the toilet bowl. And I was stunned how beautiful it looked. I mean, it really looked a work of art. And then, you came to the fragrance. Oh. Now, what are you saying all for? Have you ever really smelt what you created with a nice, peaceful mind? You see the beauty in anything. And this was not like ladies' perfume, because that's kind of fake. It's either too strong or just you just want to walk away. This was speaking of the earth, of humanity, of something which, it was a colour brown, but it should have been green because it was real, of the earth. And so when I looked at it like that, I just could not flush it away. How can you discard a work of art by pressing a button? That seems so unfair and so unappreciative of a work of art. That's what it was, the work of art. And so, honestly, I'm not making this up. I thought of taking it out of the bowl and showing it to all the retreatees. Honestly, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Now, it's not a joke because there's a great bit of Dharma in there. Why do some people think it's repulsive? Because you've been taught it's repulsive. You haven't really seen it, or even smelt it, with a mind that is liberated. You see the beauty and the fragrance in places you never expected. That's how much happiness comes from meditation. In the end, you know what it's like in public toilets or toilets in an institution like the Penang Buddhist Association. You can't stay in there admiring the view for too long. There's other people outside wanting to go in. So I had to. I put my finger on the flush button and tried to press it. No, I can't do it. It took about 3 or 4 tries before I could get the courage to let it go. And it's only because I've been trained in letting go, in renunciation, even of beautiful things, for such a long time. I did it. And the most beautiful thing which would ever come out of my bottom, ever, flushed away, down into the sewer pipes forever. I kind of feel guilty about it. But that's actually what happens. I remember telling that story so many times. And one of the times I told that story was for this physicist who worked in CERN, between France and Switzerland, the big atom collider, or fundamental particle physics machines. Incredibly smart man. And he said, "Thank you. There's one thing about Buddhism I never really appreciated. What is the nature of beauty? What is beauty?" And then when I said just how through practice in meditation you can look at even the contents of a toilet bowl and find it one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen in your life. He knew I wasn't joking. And he said, now I can kind of understand what beauty is. Wouldn't it be great if you had that wisdom of understanding beauty? You don't get that through thinking. Thinking takes you in the opposite direction. What the whole world agrees with. The contents of a toilet bowl are disgusting. When you sit there, honestly, it's one of the most beautiful things in the world. Imagine where beauty lies. That's why I told the story. I get a lot of giggles from you, but also a lot of amazing wisdom given you. Okay, oh my goodness. Have we got many people for the interviews today? 5, oh my goodness. Okay, these ones for the afternoon. I haven't finished all the questions. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu. And if you want to get some more wisdom and understand what beauty is, please go to the you-know-wheres and have a good look at what you lay before you flush it down. Agreed? No. If you see anybody inside the toilet, you're waiting outside. Say, hurry up, hurry up.